Hello, you Mayhem Makers. I'm Mindy with Quilting Mayhem, and welcome to the Kona block of the month for 2025. So, if you haven't done it before, welcome. If you have done it with me for 2024, a lot of this is going to be very familiar for you. It's just a little easier this year, which I really appreciate because Robert Kaufman has put together charm packs for this. Sew along, and so you just are going to have your charm pack and your background to make your block each month versus cutting out from fat eighths or fat quarters. So it's made a little easier, and they are all pretty much half square triangles. So I did not have to rewrite this pattern for you guys, so I am quite thankful for them this year. So in your packet, whether you just did the full package or you're doing the subscription, you will have a pattern card that'll look like this with all the instructions and then your fabrics. And they're very well done, easy to follow. So I'd hate to say that you don't necessarily need me, but I am going to walk you through how to do these blocks each month. So don't worry, but it will start to be very familiar because a lot of them are half square triangles, as I said. So it's going to be the same technique each month. But I do really love this quilt. And what's nice is from the charm pack each month, you technically can do 2 blocks because I've already made a sample quilt in the black background. Hopefully if you saw it in our social media or in the store. And then for these videos, I'm going to do this white background just to change it up so I have 2 different looking quilts by the end of 2025. And as always, if you have questions, please make sure you just reach out. You can email info@Quilting Mayhem. If you're local, come see me at the store or call, ask questions. Any of those things, I am here to help you. I don't want you to be stuck. So if you are especially a beginner quilter and this is all very new to you and maybe I say a term or a technique and you don't understand, just reach out. I will be more than happy to show you. But I do hopefully break it down for you fairly simply. But there are times I forget that there are things I say that maybe you don't necessarily understand. So let's get into this. We're step 1, half square triangles. So for those of you that followed me in 24, come on, we've been doing this. This is how this goes. You're going to take that background, draw a diagonal line on there, take a color and match it. Now the one unique thing for 2025 is you do have that charm pack and you get to pick. You pick which fabrics you want to use. They give you a lovely variety of colors, so you can make it a little more unique to you versus in 24 it was here are the Kona colors that you do, right? So change it up, and that's what's been kind of fun is that I already used a large part of the charm pack, so then I had to use what was left to me, and that's okay. So what you'll end up doing is sewing 1/4 inch from each side of this line, and actually I'll go do that and show you what it looks like, so I'll be right back. All right, so here we go. There's that lovely 1/4 inch seam on either side. Cut them apart. You will then press them open. Pressing is personal choice. If you follow me on anything, that's what I will tell you. Old school, press to the dark side. So you would press to the green away from the white, because if you press towards the white, that green would potentially show underneath when you go to quilt it. If you're me, I press them open. I just like, they're nice, they're flat, not as bulky. Now, pressing them to the dark side or one way does make it a little easier to nest up seams in the long run. I generally don't have a problem though partnering up my seams when they're flat. So once again, this is why it's personal preference, but you're going to take those and you're going to trim them down to be 3.5 inches. You must trim or your blocks will not measure the way they need to be, and then nobody's happy, okay? Make sure you trim. It's vital. I know there's a lot of them to trim and you end up with little dog ears all over your room, but it is very important. All right, then what's going to happen is you will start matching up and putting 2 of them together in this kind of pretty multicolor flying geese looking block. All right, so just randomly, however you want to do it, you can lay it all out or just grab 2 together and put them together. And then what will happen is you will sew these 2 together like this. I did not get quite this far because I need my sample blocks to get all my half square triangles done. But this is what you're going to do, is you're going to make units and sew these together. And I will show you what these look like. once we start getting this block going together. But I wanted to get you through kind of these steps so you saw how this progress was going to go. All right, and it will be important when you go to put these blocks together that you match up these seams. So if you are pressing directionally one way or the other, you need to make sure that this top seam is pressed one way and that bottom seam is pressed the opposite way so that they will nest up nicely. All right. This is why, once again, that I like pressing them open, because then it doesn't matter. I don't have to pay attention to which one of these units goes which direction, all those kinds of things. I just press everything open. I can match them as I want, and I don't have any problems with potentially having to repress a seam the opposite direction, those kinds of things. For me, it's just kind of efficiency, saves time, and once again, I just feel that it makes it nice and flat. So I just match up that seam, put a pin in it, and then sew it. All right, 1/4 inch seam allowance is what we're using for everything. Make sure if you're a beginner, you match up the beginning corners and the end corners. These need to match for that block to come out straight. This is the goal, straight blocks. I know a lot of times I see beginners, they don't quite understand the importance of having everything match up, be straight, and then their blocks come out wonky, the quilt comes out wonky, and you guys don't know why. These are the important steps. You skip them and things become mayhem. It's just how it is. And so if you want things to not be waffly, wavy when you're done, match things up. Try to make that block as square as possible. Now, if it's not absolutely square, it's okay. Don't start ripping seams. Don't get too OCD. Don't go over the other way of mayhem and be like, oh my God, it's not like dead on. I can show you ways how to make it work even when it's not true to size. That's okay, you can work with that. So don't go ripping seams just because it's one thread off, all right? Don't cause that much stress in your quilting. But so you'll sew that. Then the next step, step 3, which is going to be kind of your center block. It is just what they call a simple 4-patch. So you're going to take your 4 squares and sew them together, 1/4 inch seams, press those open, and then match them. So I'm going to take this to the machine and I'll show you what the next step looks like. Helps if I remember I actually had a sewn one. Yes, my sewing room is still a little bit chaotic. So that is what it'll look like. So you'll go from this to this, and they match pretty dead on. This is happiness here. I know there's like that smidge of white in there. Let that go. Just let that go. Because from here, you can't tell, right? You don't see that it's not dead on. It's fine. Okay, we're learning to let things go. All right, so these first blocks for the 4-patch, you're just gonna sew that seam allowance, trim threads. Make sure you're trimming your threads. They get in the way, all right? I'm gonna press these and then put them together. All right, so they look like this. Put them right sides together, match up that center seam, and once again, you do wanna make sure you're matching that beginning and end corner so that the center block is going to be nice, matching, and square. So 1/4 inch seam allowance to put this one together. If you're new, you can pin this if you're worried about it shifting. Those of you that are experienced, you understand. We generally can line them up, take it straight to the machine, and there's generally not a big problem. But if you are finding that maybe when you start these, that fabric does shift, I do recommend pinning, and that potentially could be like a foot pressure with your machine, those kinds of things. So if these are not necessarily staying lined up when you go to sew without pinning, then I would start pinning, just so that they do stay nice and straight. So I'll show you what it looks like. All right, so your 4-patch, there you go. That's gonna be that center for you. I've got my other pieces ready to go. I'm gonna flip this camera around and show you the layout before I go sewing all the blocks together to give you an idea of how you're actually gonna do the block construction. So let me go flip this around. All right, so unfortunately I don't have the greatest space here, but you're gonna get the gist of it. So keep in mind when you're laying out these blocks that it's this white part, these white triangles that are gonna be butted up against this 4-patch. Don't get it turned around and have the green to green. You want the white so that you get the star look in your block. And so all we're gonna do is sew each of the 3 blocks across into rows, and the rows to each other into one big block. And a reminder, if there are two seams that meet up, make sure you pin them. It is very important to pin those seams together so that they don't shift on you when you sew, so everything lines up nice and straight. All right? But any of the solid blocks you don't need to pin. They should match up just fine. All right, so rows are assembled. And now I'm going to put one to the other. And we are going to pin these two joins. These are the only ones that have seams that line up. So we'll have those. And then I'm going to do, so I'll sew that, press it open, and then we will do the same to the bottom and the block will be done. There is a join here in the middle too, so make sure you catch that and pin that before you go putting those rows on. All right, here we go. I love this block. But green's one of my favorite colors, so this is lovely. I love it so much. Hopefully you have no problems with it, but like I said, reach out if you do. The nice thing is, like I said, if you want to make a second block, you can. Just remember, some of those charms that are left over are getting used in the end for that outer border. So don't go using up all those charms or throwing them into a scrap bin or anything. You do need to hold on to a handful of them for that border in the end, all right? But you should have enough that you could do 2 blocks if you want to make this quilt bigger, or make 2 quilts and still have enough at least for 1 border. I do believe I have enough for 2, but the variety towards the end of what leftover charms I have is not as pretty as if I was just doing 1 quilt. If you have 1 quilt, you get a better variety, more options, because you have a lot more charms left over than if you start using them up like I do and trying to make 2 quilts. So I hope you enjoy it. Make sure you're showing it in the Facebook group as you follow along and are part of our newsletters, following us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. I hope you all have a lovely day and keep on stitching.